I'm going to talk about human-to-human communication in Bitcoin. Why? Because we have a problem. I believe Bitcoin's biggest problem is that we speak the language of cryptographic hashes, of network effects, of P2P electronic cash transactions. But really, we are the ones who spin up nodes. We're the ones who sign transactions. We're the ones who mine. We are the ones who make decisions. And decisions are not just based on information. Human decisions are largely based on trust, on emotion as well. And we like to speak this kind of language, cyber hornets, human nodes, whether it's plebs or whether it's Bitcoin companies and organizations. But I'm going to tell you why I believe that's a big problem and how you and all of the humans of Bitcoin can be the heroes that save the day. A little bit about who I am. I am a human of Bitcoin. My name is Phil, and I'm someone who's willing to put their head above the parapet to create and publish content and to be with you here today. I've been in writing, marketing, and editing for 10 plus years. Here's a picture of me at my first Bitcoin conference, looking like a total noob. But really now what I do is help Bitcoin companies, freedom tech companies, to get better results from their communication. And what I have seen in my career is that we get better results from communication when we can speak effectively to humans. Now, results differ by category. It might be more users, it might be more investment, it might be the right kinds of partnerships or connections, it might be a higher profit. But really, we want to, whatever those goals are, I help clients to reach them. Let's move on to adoption and Bitcoin in general. I believe it's broken because media works currently in a cycle of the attention economy. In order to get people to pay attention, you have to create polarity. You have to create A versus B and create that kind of comparison. Now that, the typical polarity might be bear versus bull, price rising versus a price crashing. That's often what we hear about is, up versus down. Even within Bitcoin, I think we tell polemic narratives, KYC versus non-KYC or core versus NOTs. For me, that is a fake framing. It's just there to get attention, and it's very fiat. We are focusing on grabbing eyeballs, which only works for the brief moment. It gets people attention just for a short time until they lose that hit of adrenaline or dopamine and that outrage, and they click away. So unless something is really testing and asking people to think deeper and to go deeper, it gets a real short attention span, and the effects of it are very fleeting, and we just go round and round in this circle. Some of the stories that we run are, that the traditional media runs, focus on human criticisms, because there's actually no founder of Bitcoin, there's no Steve Jobs, there's no central figure to focus on, like Sam Altman with tech companies. And so traditional media tends to focus on criticisms. They criticize Donald Trump's shitcoin empire. They criticize James Howell's search for Bitcoins in a landfill. They bring up any kind of loss, theft, seizure, or scam with a human face that they can put to it. And the stories that we run within the Bitcoin ecosystem and industry are certainly more positive. But you won't see many human faces here. They're all about institutional adoption, policy, new technologies. These are the narratives that we're telling within the Bitcoin industry. And the problem is with that, it attracts systems thinkers. It attracts people with a GitHub account, with a toolbox in their garage, with a background in engineering, the kinds of people who are already in Bitcoin and are able to perceive a big top-down system, how it works, and that's the way their brains are wired. The issue is that 95% of the population, the 95% that isn't here yet, do not think like that. They're not paying attention to these kinds of headlines because they're not systems thinkers. They're not developers. So they're paying attention to other things, human things. Let's think of the adoption chart or the adoption curve, let's say, as a marketing plan. And all good marketing plans should be systematic. We shouldn't be using a scattergun approach to just fire out messages at everybody and hope something lands. Now, we're here, the early adopters, the kinds of people who are watching this video or going to a Bitcoin conference. And really, we want to be targeting the people who are next for us in our lives, right? Whether you work in Bitcoin, whether it's particular friends who or family members who are connected to you, it's about whether it's the right time for them and they're in the right place. Now, all of these people in the chart have different mindsets. They have different emotional triggers. Their brains are wired in different ways. So there's no one approach which is going to work for everyone. It's really about drilling down into who they are and beginning to tell a story. Now, this is what happens when you pitch Bitcoin. If you're watching this video, you've probably tried to do this to compress years of learning and understanding into a 5-minute diatribe about why people should give up the money in their bank account that they know and adopt magic internet money. And it probably doesn't get you the results that you desire. I know that's been the case for me. That's because we're trying to tell the story of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin isn't the story. Bitcoin is a technology. It's a extremely complex and wide-ranging and far-reaching system and network. And if we think about other technological breakthroughs, they are also not stories. Fire is not a story. The light bulb is not a story. The printing press is not a story. The rocket ship or the aircraft is not a story. The internet is not a story in itself. Why? Because problem solution is not a story. And I think we're very fixated on what's the problem, what's the solution in Bitcoin. And that's not a story that resonates with a lot of people. Particularly, the problem and the solution of Bitcoin are complex, but nobody cares. Nobody is not, very few people are being drawn into a story about Bitcoin because there are no characters. In a story, we need 3 things. We need conflict, which is essentially a problem, an issue that is difficult to solve, that generates that suspense and that intrigue. Now, Bitcoin does have that, although it is a little complex to share the problems of the fiat world. Stories also need characters, real 3-dimensional characters, not fake fairy tale characters who are very easy to see through and we're not invested in them, but people we can empathize with who have flaws and faults and people who go through great change of their own volition to achieve a satisfying resolution. Now, resolution is the 3rd element that we need in a story, and something that Bitcoin is missing because we often fail to show the effects of Bitcoin. We're too focused on problem and solution. So we're not very good at pinpointing characters in Bitcoin. Let's think about who these characters might be. You might recognize this chart. It's Jesse Meyer's chart on why yuppies don't investigate and accept Bitcoin. I mean, the TLDR is that they've already won in the fiat world because they're very smart and they have operated in that system well, and they don't need to change. So they may well be the last people to accept Bitcoin despite being smart. Now, maxis, Bitcoin maximalists, people who already self-custody and invest a lot of their time and effort into the Bitcoin economy are in the top left. Very smart people, very little trust in the system. Shitcoiners are down there in the bottom left because they only have half the answer. And normal people, the vast majority of people, are more to the right of this chart because they exist within a system that they trust. Now, I often ask my clients, where do your ideal customers, where are the users for your service, or where are the next Bitcoin is going to come from? They say, well, probably not up here, probably not this, probably not these Financial Times or New York Times or Wall Street Journal readers, because they're very resistant to Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is for everyone, so everyone else. And I say, you can't market to everyone. There is no one message that resonates with everyone because of what we discussed earlier, right? Different mindsets, different emotional triggers, different situations. So I say, okay, think harder. Who is, let's define typical user that you'd want to use your Bitcoin product or service. And they say, maybe someone like me, a systems thinker who's got, a GitHub account and 8+ years in Bitcoin. And I say, well, those people are already here. We need to be finding where people are at any given moment. And I change all the time. Some things I have a very low trust in the system. Other times I have a higher trust in the system when I believe that suits me more. And sometimes I make very smart decisions, very high IQ decisions. Oftentimes I make dumb decisions. But on a range of different issues, on many different aspects, I'm all over the place. Any time of the day, I could be a different place in this chart. And that's because humans, in general, are, they have their flaws, they have their problems, but they're inconsistent. I think we really resonate with characters who are three-dimensional, who share vulnerabilities and inconsistencies. For example, I love watching people punch each other in the face in an MMA fight. I follow combat sports. But on the other hand, I own 2 cats that I love very much. So those two things aren't typically something you'd see in a two-dimensional, macho or sensitive character. But we can be both. So this is my point, that characters can be anywhere at any time, and we should really think about where people are at any time on this chart, and a range of other things too. And we really need to draw up ideal customers, users, partners who are inconsistent and three-dimensional. And those are the kinds of characters that really people can empathize with and that they can pay attention to. Okay, so back to my story. Here's me at Bitcoin Atlantis in 2024 in beautiful Madeira. I was there promoting my fiction book, the world's first Bitcoin fiction anthology, 21 Futures. Now, I've been in Bitcoin for a few years at this point, but as a non-technical person, I felt pretty new. There were incredible speakers and Bitcoiners and people walking around the conference. Jack Mallers, Lynn Alden, Jeff Booth, Peter McCormack, all just walking the corridors, shaking hands and chatting to people. I was terrified to start any conversations because I'm not a technical person. I thought I'd be trapped in conversations about, mining hash rates and really complex algorithm stuff. And I'm not a developer. I haven't been in Bitcoin for, 10, 12 years like they have. And so I sat back and took it all in, really. And apart from selling a few books, I listened to the kinds of issues that people were talking about and the kinds of narratives that they were telling, and meeting some great people outside as well. And later that year, when I was feeling very, very burned out with my coaching career, coaching writers to write better, I thought I have to change. And my time at Bitcoin Atlantis really stuck in my head, because while I was burned out from 6-day or 7-day working weeks, from earning the same money as I had years and years ago, 10 years ago, and really feeling like I was on this hamster wheel of just working faster to grow, to reach more people online, to get more clients, to launch more products and services, and just continuing to work into the digital void. What stuck with me was the gap that I saw in Bitcoin, that there were all of these people, all of these issues, and all of these great problem solution ideas happening in Bitcoin, but there was very little narrative because we're early enough in Bitcoin that most of the people are still technical, and that there aren't a lot of creative people at this point who were well versed in what Bitcoin is and what it does, and also in how to communicate well with people through narratives, through stories, through fiction, and through content as well. So I went back to my passion, my love of writing. I stopped coaching and I launched a Bitcoin business. I thought, I don't know if there's a need for this, but I'm just going to do it and just see what's out there and who I can connect with. And thankfully, 2 years later, recording this video, speaking to you, having worked with dozens of Bitcoin and Freedom Tech and Nostra related clients, running content for them, helping to get better results, connect with investors, partners, and get more users. And I think the biggest difference between me now and me, at this conference when I was feeling very burned out and feeling, quite hopeless, like I wasn't in control. The difference is time. I'm now in control of my own time, and working with the humans of Bitcoin gave me my time back, gave me the ability to say no to bosses, no, I can be my own boss, gave me the ability to say no to shitcoin clients or any kind of projects that I don't want to put my energy into. So really getting full sovereignty and control back over my time is the happy ending of this story for me. You're probably thinking, I don't care, Phil. Nobody cares about you. And you're totally right. We should remember, that's a good thing to remember in copywriting, content writing, that nobody cares about you. Nobody cares about your story, your product, your service. Nobody even cares about Bitcoin. They care about the effect that it has on their lives and on them. And I'm sharing all of this with you in this way because I believe that conflict, character, and resolution is a better way to share what I do rather than through ROI charts and newsletter open rate numbers. Because hopefully you resonate with that story, with who I am, and getting control of your time is something that you would like to do as well. I also try to include these principles of persuasion in my work, and all of these help to share the human experience that goes into your work, and also to demonstrate the effects of your work. So that's something, however you work in Bitcoin, whatever Freedom Tech project you're working on, or if you're just watching this as an interested Bitcoiner who would like to help with adoption and understand what is necessary to onboard more people. We must do those two things first, right? Show the human experience of what goes into your work, your passion, and to show the effects of Bitcoin and the effects of your work. Back to these principles of persuasion, Bitcoin is only doing one of them well. Can you guess which one it is? That's right, it's scarcity, something baked into the protocol, and something we don't need to worry about too much with Bitcoin. That's a great narrative that Bitcoin has. Many of the others, I think we're not doing well. So how can we improve with our communication and make it more persuasive? Well, reciprocity is about giving back. It's about asking first It's about offering first and asking second. Now, whether that's just dedicating more time to the people around you and really, listening and having those conversations, or whether it's, offering your expertise, whether it's, doing an interview, whatever it is, offer first and ask second. Authority, I think maybe we're doing this one okay. We need to always offer evidence. I think Daniel Batten is a very good example of someone in the Bitcoin community who always offers excellent authoritative studies and evidence for all of the work that he does in the energy sector. And we should do more of that. Now, consistency is not about posting 100 times a day on X or Nostr. It's about sticking to topics. We often get carried away in news cycles and what is current. But really, if you can stick to your message, your opinion, your expertise, and keep offering that message, then people understand it, and it starts to reach the right people. Likability can be a difficult one, especially with Bitcoiners who prefer sitting behind a desk and not being in front of people. We have to be vulnerable to be liked. We have to show that we too are human, we have our faults. So I think if you can share being vulnerable and sharing your challenges and sharing what's real in your life, not just what's happening at your company and why this version 3.2 is great. Share your challenges, and if you do that in places like LinkedIn, you can make some incredible partnerships. You can connect with the right kinds of people who may invest or really help you to grow what you're doing. Social proof, for me, we do this okay, and it can be difficult in Bitcoin because of privacy reasons. But I think we need to make customers and users the stars of the show, the characters in your stories, right? Rather than Bitcoin first, Bitcoin does this, or my product or service does this, or my app does this, or Nostr does that. We need to, sell the benefits of people who are using it and what effect that has, and saying that's can be like you, dear reader. Unity, well, Bitcoin is not very unified because it's such a big and complex machine. I think unity can be improved by just championing people, by sharing good opinions, good values, good content, anything that you believe extols the virtues and the principles of Satoshi, or what you believe in with Bitcoin. And I think if we do all of these things, if we show the input and the experience, if we show the effects of Bitcoin, if we persuade people with our communication, they say, yeah, that's me. They're pointing to the screen, they're nodding, they're saying, that's exactly like me. I want to get my time back, or that customer is like me, or that opinion is like mine. And they say, I do care about that. So that's the goal that we're going for with all of this. That's really the message here. Okay, so who are some examples of companies or people doing this well? From the top left, Gridless is a mining operation that works in Africa and electrifies rural areas. It makes renewable energy projects viable through Bitcoin mining, and it changes people's lives. There's been some great documentaries and great videos about the massive impact that cheap or new electricity has on these communities, and it's awesome to watch. Success stories on the Gazer Fund crowdfunding platform. This is a section of the website where you can see successful campaigns who have reached their goals, what kind of stories they're telling, and what they've done well to achieve that goal. Club Orange is a meetup app that's aim is to get us to meet up in real life, not just on an app, not just digitally, and it shows that through the stories they share on socials, and I think even someone has got married by connecting on this app. Steak and Shake, you probably know about that. It's been in the news in the last year. Lots of user-generated content, people buying burgers with Lightning and sharing that. That's one way to do things. The Human Rights Foundation, I think, is the real gold standard of storytelling in the space, because they even allow the project, or they encourage the leaders of their Bitcoin projects who've changed people's lives with their projects to come and tell their own story and share their own story. And this is Paul from Primal. His story seems to be that he hates wearing a shirt, but he does share some great life updates and interesting things about his life in Costa Rica working with Primal, and how circular economies, Bitcoin, and Nostr is helping him live a healthy and cool lifestyle. You're probably thinking, can't AI do all of this, Phil? Well, look at these images. They're all images that I've grabbed from thumbnails, from blogs and social posts. And imagine that behind each one of them is a video or an article, or an opinion, or something that you might want to look at and spend time with. Which one are you going to click on? Which one are you going to open? You're probably struggling because they all look the same. They all look like low effort. They all look like noise. And that's because you think, if this has been generated with such little time and care and effort, this image, the content behind it probably has as well. There's no proof of work in any of this. I think with deepfakes and with the sea of infinite content which we have online now, it's getting harder to attract attention with garish images, hooks, headlines, or anything really. People want verified, real world, real life experience. If you can't be bothered to write it, why should I be bothered to read it? I think most people will leave machine content to be read and passed and reimagined by machines, and they'll want to pay attention to human things. They'll want to pay attention to the real biological experience which happens here. Let's imagine AI, this box, is the machine, is Claude or ChatGPT, and the input to this is our lives. It's our biological experience on this planet. It's our opinions, and it's our creativity. And I think that is what we want to pay attention to. That's where the value is in all of this, because the machine can just pass all the information that's already out there and spit it out into something semi-valuable. We might see a machine-written blog or a video as something useful maybe for now, but as Jeff Booth says, the value will trend to the marginal cost of production, which is very little. It's a $20 a month subscription to create infinite digital assets. And I think the essence of that is AI is backwards looking. It churns out a rehashed version of what we already have and what we already know. It's a time saver. Whereas human creativity is always forward looking. It's using what is around us and what we experience and putting things together to create something unexpected and new and exciting. And those are the kinds of ideas that we want to create with this human to human communication. Unique ideas which are going to be surprising and exciting to people. Now, in short, AI is a great help. It's a great tool to work with, and it's not something that I'm against. But I call myself totally human-righted because my perspective on AI is that it's a black box, and it just takes what we already have, what's already available online, and spits out something, a rehashed version of it. Now, yeah, is that valuable? Maybe to some people, but going forward, I think we're really going to focus our value and our efforts on the experience that goes into the production of all of this. So how can we put this into practice? Essentially, do the work. We have to do unfakeable work. put real time and resources in. That's proof of work. That's why Bitcoin and everyone involved with it talks about proof of work, because it's what we want to see. Don't entrust this to other people. Don't entrust it to machines or anything else. You have to put in the time yourself. A couple of things I do: I'm always sharing my story in videos like this, or podcasts, or articles. I try and help people along the way by posting tips or opinions as well. I run 21 Futures, which is a freedom fiction project that allows writers to get paid for publishing on our blog and in our anthologies. I'm running writing competitions as well. And I also help to run the Bitcoin community where I live in the Canary Islands, doing lovely walks and meetups. Here are 3 mantras which I think can help any Bitcoin related person, product, service to improve their communication. And they say that you can't hear an image. Well, you can't even see this image yet. But if you're here on the interwebs, you probably know the image of Shia LaBeouf, which is going to appear. Okay, so without further ado, here are the 3 mantras. Here's how to improve your communication in Bitcoin. Always start from a place of humanity. Remember that we are the ones who make the decisions. It's our impact, it's our lives, and we are ultimately the ones who shape Bitcoin. So begin from a point of humans. You're a person and you're speaking to a person. We must develop our characters. Don't just focus on a 2-dimensional, character, a normie and a pleb. Let's think about 3-dimensional, deep profiles of people. Now, that might be you if you're telling your own story, if you're sharing something about your own life. So think deeply about your vulnerabilities, your opinions, your inconsistencies, and share that, because that really people really resonate with that. And if it's a user, if it's a customer or a prospective, buyer or user of your service, of your app, then really dig into who they are and where they are at any one point in time, because only through that can you create communication. Can you communicate with them in a way which they will recognize and they will care about. Finally, just tell stories. Don't get stuck in problem solution mode, and actually take the risk and do the work to tell your story. Remember, we need conflict, a difficult problem to solve. We need characters that people resonate with, that are 3-dimensional, and we need resolution. Let's share the effects of what your product or service does, what Bitcoin does, and how it can really impact people. Now, if we do this, that's going to be really helpful, and I think we all win if we can onboard more Bitcoiners and more people into the ecosystem. What we must do is approach people as humans and listen to their stories. Listen to what they have to say, and if we can tell our own narratives, if we can construct them in a way which resonates, then you'll get better results from your communication in Bitcoin. Thank you for listening to me today.